lots of dirty diapers, baby bottles with maggots in them. It was bad. It was really dark, very hot.
A lot of wax built up in her ears so that we couldn't see her eardrums. She had a hard time keeping her body upright. She had to be supported.
There's no one else here, and they've been at my house all day, and I just figured out that there's babies inside this house. I'm here now.
This man, trembling and crying, is Raymond Murray, devastated by the tragedy that occurred in his own house, involving his wife and 7 children, despite believing he had only 2. The events in this house shocked the United States, shedding light on the toxic relationship between a mentally unstable woman and a husband who isolated himself by smoking marijuana, avoiding a reality he disliked. The children bore the brunt of this dynamic. If you wish to uncover the chilling details, stay with us until the end of this video about the so-called House of Horrors. Erica Murray was born in 1983 in the United States as the 3rd child of Kevin and Jaron Murray. The family lived in southern Worcester County, Massachusetts, in the same rural house where Kevin had grown up. Kevin worked as a car mechanic and handled home repairs, while Jaron was a homemaker who enjoyed crafts. Known for their cheerful and sociable nature, the Murrays often hosted neighborhood barbecues. Erica was described by relatives as a happy, charming and beautiful child. Her older brothers frequently played games like baseball and hide-and-seek with her. During her teenage years in the late 1990s, Erica became meticulous about her appearance, ensuring her hair was perfect and her nails flawless. She was a responsible student with aspirations. Shortly before graduating high school, she began working at a fast food chain, where she met Raymond Rivera, a man 7 years her senior. Little is known about Raymond's background except that he had a sister named Kristin and worked at the same fast food restaurant. Erica and Raymond became friends and soon began dating. Initially, Raymond was loving and understanding, but their relationship soon became controlling and possessive. By 2001, when Erica was 18, she discovered she was pregnant. The news threw her into a crisis. She dreaded attending graduation visibly pregnant. However, a friend convinced her to attend. On July 17, 2001, after graduation, she gave birth to her first daughter, Keela. The new family, Erica, Raymond and Keela, moved in with Erica's parents. Though things seemed fine at first, by 2003, when Erica became pregnant again, their home felt too small for another child. Between 2003 and 2004, the family moved to Raymond's sister's house in Blackstone, Massachusetts, where Erica gave birth to their second child, Nicholas. Initially, they appeared to live a happy family life, with Erica sharing moments of joy on social media, photos of birthday parties and posts about cooking for her children. The children attended school and interacted with peers, presenting as a normal, happy family. However, beneath this facade, chaos slowly took over their home. Over time, the house devolved into a filthy garbage dump, though neighbors remained unaware. The children continued attending school without signs of neglect, and Erica maintained a misleading image on social media, sharing posts about mundane tasks like washing dishes and cooking. Her followers often praised her dedication. Erica worked as a saleswoman at a craft store in Whiteville. Despite her public persona, her home life told a different story. Friends and family noticed her transformation. Once a stylish and sociable young woman, Erica began wearing loose, untidy clothing and rarely left the house. She became increasingly isolated, which her family attributed to embarrassment over the home's disorder. But the disarray was only a fraction of what truly unfolded behind closed doors. Inside that filthy and decaying house lay horrifying secrets. In September 2014, those secrets began unraveling when neighbor Betsy Brown accidentally uncovered the terrifying truth. One afternoon, her 10-year-old son went to play with Erica's son, unknowingly stepping into the House of Horrors. After some time of playing, the child called his mother, distressed, asking for help to calm a baby who wouldn't stop crying, was shocked to hear that there was a newborn in the house. Concerned, she decided to visit and see what was going on. Upon entering the home, Betsy was immediately hit by an unbearable stench. What she saw inside was horrifying. The house was in deplorable conditions, completely dark, with sheets and blankets covering the windows, piles of garbage, rats, insects and worms infesting every corner, while clothes and excrement were scattered all over. Following the child's call, Betsy went to the room where the baby was supposedly crying. Instead of finding a single infant, she discovered two girls, one about 5 months old and the other around 3 years old. This was shocking for Betsy, who had always believed only had two children, a 13-year-old girl and a 10-year-old boy. The two girls were lying in separate beds, crying and rocking back and forth, covered in scars and apparent signs of neglect. The scene was a stark reflection of the darkness and chaos that had consumed life, hidden behind a false appearance. Horrified by what she had uncovered, Betsy knew she had to act fast. She called emergency services, describing the house's conditions: dirt on the walls, baby handprints, excrement, dirty diapers and maggots. When the police arrived, they were met with an unsanitary environment. The children were living in filth, without proper access to hygiene, food or medical care. The scene was devastating and revealed the alarming living conditions that had remained hidden for so long. This wasn't the first time authorities had visited the home. In 2007, the Massachusetts Child Protection Agency had conducted an inspection after receiving a complaint about the home's conditions. However, they found no clear evidence of child abandonment and decided not to open a file. No follow-up was made and the situation only worsened. During this second intervention, the situation was far more severe. Alarmed by the conditions, the police immediately contacted This agency took custody of not only the two youngest girls, but also 10-year-old son and 13-year-old daughter. It was clear that urgent action was needed to ensure the safety and well-being of the children. After being placed under the department's care, all the children underwent medical examinations. The results were shocking. The 3-year-old girl was found to have a lack of muscle mass, unable to stand without support, and was also sensitive to light. The 5-month-old baby had a flat head, a result of lying down for prolonged periods. The most alarming discovery was that neither of the two youngest girls had a birth registration, and both were severely malnourished, showing the extreme neglect they had suffered. The medical examinations continued, and paediatricians found that the two older children, the 13-year-old girl and the 10-year-old boy, had worm infestations in their ears, with so much build-up that doctors couldn't even see their eardrums. This neglect and inattention reflected an extreme level of abandonment. When was informed about the dire conditions her children were in, her reaction was chilling. She showed little emotion upon learning of their state. While she agreed that the children should not remain in such conditions, her primary concern seemed to be the disappearance of her cat, leaving many to question her mental state and her true level of concern for her children's well-being. The community was left stunned by the events. Many couldn't understand how this horrifying situation could have gone on for so long without any family member intervening or authorities stepping in sooner. Days after the initial intervention, following interviews with the children, the police decided a more thorough search of the house was necessary. With a search warrant in hand, they proceeded to conduct a detailed inspection. The detectives returned to house, fearing that what they might find would be even more disturbing. Upon conducting the new inspection, they quickly came across a far darker and more desolate picture than the first. The conditions were far worse than anticipated, and the revelations made during this second visit shocked the community, exposing the full extent of the situation in which both the children and had lived. The house was not only filthy and unsanitary, but also showed signs of total abandonment, leading detectives to dive deeper into life and the circumstances surrounding it. Questions were raised about the father's role, as he lived under the same roof, went to work, and returned every day. How could he not realize the dire situation at home? During the thorough search of house, detectives made a grisly discovery that exceeded all expectations. In 2 closets they found the remains of 3 babies. One of them was wrapped in adult pants, with the umbilical cord and placenta still attached, indicating that just after birth the baby had been shoved into those clothes and left there. This discovery revealed the horror of neglect and suggested a complete lack of care and respect for life. The horrific find led detectives to act swiftly. The remains were taken to the morgue for further examination. Due to the advanced state of decomposition, forensic scientists faced a difficult challenge in determining the exact time of death. A pathologist suggested the babies may have been dead for weeks or even years before being discovered, which made the situation even more disturbing. The forensic report revealed that one of the babies could have been born alive, though the doctor could not confirm this definitively due to the condition of the remains. The shocking new evidence, along with the possibility that at least one of the babies might have survived birth, sent shockwaves through the community. There was an immediate outcry and intense media scrutiny of. When questioned by the police about whether she had given birth to other children who did not survive, initially denied it. However, when they informed her that they had found the remains of a baby, she admitted to giving birth to that child, but claimed it had not been breathing when born at home. In the recording of the interview, she explained that in a panic, she didn't know what to do, so she placed the baby's body in a closet in the bedroom. Later, in a second interview, detectives informed her that they had found the skeletal remains of 2 more babies. At first she claimed they had also been stillborn, but after further questioning she admitted that one of the babies, a girl, had survived for a week before passing away. She said that when she checked on her, she found her blue and not breathing. When asked why she hadn't called 911 or tried to resuscitate the baby, she simply said she had panicked, explained that she had secretly given birth to the babies in the bathtub while her family slept, and admitted that she felt trapped and didn't know how to handle the situation. Her fear that would abandon her if he found out about more children led her to keep each pregnancy and birth a secret, which in turn showed her inability to seek help or confront the situation responsibly. After DNA tests, the results confirmed that all 7 children were, and both were arrested. For his part, appeared visibly distressed and claimed that he didn't know the 2 girls were his daughters and that he had no idea about the other 3 babies who had died and were hidden in the house. However, the police found a part of his story hard to believe. It seemed almost impossible that he could live in the same house with and not realize she had been pregnant 5 times. They also didn't believe he was unaware of the other 2 girls in the house until his wife revealed their presence and claimed he was supposedly taking care of them. Despite this, the police could not prove that knew everything. So he was initially only charged with drug-related offences since experts discovered that he had been growing marijuana in the basement. Faced charges that included second-degree murder, concealment of a fetal death, assault and assault on a child causing significant injuries, reckless endangerment of a child, and 2 counts of animal cruelty related to a cat and a dog that were removed from the home by the city's Animal Control Office. After all the details of what had been hidden in the so-called House of Horrors, as the media labelled it, came to light, some of neighbours shared their testimonies about what they had observed over the years. One resident mentioned that she never heard major complaints although she recalled that her grandchildren once complained about the bad smell coming from the house. Another neighbour regretted not having called animal control after seeing a dog tied with a very short rope outside the house. A postal worker noted that the house always seemed dirty, and the children often ate breakfast in the garage. Another woman, who lived 2 houses down from parents' residence in Norbridge, recalled knowing the girl since childhood and was left speechless when she heard about the situation. According to her, often visited her mother with her 2 older children, but she never saw any other children. On his part, the employees at the store where worked mentioned that they sold crafts and candlesticks handmade by her, but they didn't know her well and had never been inside her house. Some warned that she had resigned from her job about 2 weeks before the grim discovery. One of co-workers shared some confidences he had made about his home, saying that he had some hygiene and personal finance problems at home and that he felt overwhelmed by fatherhood. Apparently, according to this witness, took refuge in the basement of the house, where he dedicated himself to growing and consuming marijuana. He showed up to work in clothes that were washed at the dry cleaners and kept a tidy desk, which had photographs of his wife and 2 older children. Always said that he couldn't leave his wife and children because he didn't want to hurt her, as he loved her despite everything. The house was closed and declared uninhabitable due to being infested with flies, rats and even used diapers piled nearly a metre high. The personnel in charge of inspecting hazardous materials worked tirelessly to decontaminate the property while continuing their search with the fear of making other disturbing discoveries. The cleaning took arduous hours and cost over $25,000, which had to be paid by Sister, the owner of the house. The work included the removal of carpets on the 2nd floor, as well as knocking down walls and shelves in one of the rooms due to contamination. Once investigators confirmed that no more remains were found, the property was demolished. In the following days, the relatives, friends and neighbours of the held several vigils in front of the place where the house once stood. They left stuffed animals, balloons and flowers in honour of the children, while the community and relatives continued to be dismayed by the events. At a hearing in December 2014 in court, 31 years old, pleaded not guilty to all charges. Although initially held without bail, her bail was set at $1 million. The trial didn't begin until June 2019, 5 years later, with remaining without bail, except on one occasion when photographs of the remains of the babies were shown. Her defence team argued that the 3 babies could have been born still and not died due to the defendant's negligence. The prosecution, however, argued that the 5 minor children of the accused were ignored and abandoned, which ultimately led to the death of 3 of them. During the trial, the prosecutors maintained that was a negligent mother who forced her children to live in unsanitary conditions surrounded by garbage, dead animals, dirty diapers and other filth. They added that they believed one of the babies had been born alive and died because didn't seek medical attention. They claimed that after moving into the house, became pregnant for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and final time. All these pregnancies culminated in births at home, as no one knew she was pregnant, with her swollen belly hidden under loose clothing. Heartbreaking testimonies were presented about the state of the house and the neglect of the children. Doctors who evaluated the children, social workers, and the neighbour who made the discovery took the stand to describe what they saw. She said that everywhere she looked, there was dirt on the walls, little baby handprints, dirty diapers, and baby bottles filled with worms. After these statements, prosecutors recounted how police found the remains of the babies in closets near one of them. There was a dead dog in a bag and a second baby missing in diapers and fully clothed. They also played in the courtroom recordings of interrogation in which she admitted that a girl had been born alive but died shortly after, and she panicked about calling the authorities. Her defence attorneys raised mental illness as a defence, and experts who were called to testify for the defence said that the woman had a personality disorder that prevented her from understanding the seriousness of the conditions at home. The forensic psychologist testified that had been emotionally abused by, and that she truly believed she was raising her children the best she could. She loved and cared for them and thought she was a good mother. The attorneys said that although as a mother, she was not able to care for her children. Home was an unhealthy environment for her children, and they did not believe that actions met the requirements of a murder charge. They warned that the prosecution had not been able to prove that she could have taken any action to save the girl's life. They noted that life began to fall apart approximately 3 years before the events when she secretly gave birth to her third child at home. Her partner firmly insisted on not having more children due to financial difficulties, which psychologically affected because the responsibility of not getting pregnant fell on her shoulders, but her husband did not take any action. The defence argued that since the birth of one of her children began to show irreversible changes in her behaviour, possibly due to severe postpartum depression. This led her to hide her pregnancies and keep her babies a secret, fearing that would discover them. Additionally, she lived terrified at the idea that someone else would know about the existence of her minor children. According to lawyer, she was trapped in a nightmare from which she could not escape, living constantly in fear. Although the prosecution claimed that knew what she was doing and had led a life of secrecy and deceit, they argued that she was the cause of the deaths of the babies. Judge commented that there was not sufficient evidence to prove that some of the babies were born alive. She also ruled that although the death of one of the babies was senseless and tragic, the prosecution had not been able to prove that had caused it. So she was acquitted of the charge of second-degree murder. She was also found not guilty of 2 counts of reckless endangerment of a child related to her older children, ages 13 and 10. However, she was found guilty of 2 counts of animal cruelty and 2 counts of assault and battery on a child involving the girls, ages 3 years and 5 months. The judge noted that in this case there was nothing normal, as these were her children, the most vulnerable, who had no way of knowing how to defend or protect themselves. However, she could not punish her, as some would like, for the fact that the remains of 3 babies were found in the closets due to her mental health. The society expects from us, and as I said, it's extremely difficult. There is nothing about this case that is normal, nothing rational or sensible about the events. So when I sit and think long and hard about what sentence is appropriate, given the crimes she's been convicted of, I have to take into account. Finally, in July of that same year, 2019, aged 36, was sentenced to 8 years in prison. When she received her sentence, she had already spent almost 5 years in prison, so she would have to serve at least 2 or 3 more years before being eligible for parole. This parole, which extended for 5 years, included the obligation to seek mental health treatment and stay away from children under 10 years old. 3 months later, on October 29, 2019, after reaching an agreement with prosecutors, 42 pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including assault and battery on a child with substantial injury, 2 counts of reckless endangerment of a child, 2 counts of animal cruelty, and 1 count of possession for distribution of a Class D substance. Although his attorney filed a motion in August 2016 to dismiss the charges because he allegedly never had custody of the 2 neglected children who were in the home, prosecutors objected, saying he was the children's father. According to the Worcester District Attorney's Office, the judge sentenced him to 3.5 years on the assault charge, giving him credit for 1,642 days already served. On the reckless endangerment charge, he was sentenced to 4 years in the House of Correction to be served concurrently with the previous sentence, with credit for the 136 days already served. For the remaining charges, he was sentenced to 3 years of probation, with the conditions of not having unsupervised contact with children under 10 years old, complying with all service plans of the Department of Children and Families, and receiving evaluation and treatment for substance abuse. He was also ordered to stay drug-free, with random testing, and to receive evaluation and treatment for mental health. His attorney commented that took on a lot of responsibility he shouldn't have, given his position at the time, but he just wanted to resolve the case, which is why he pleaded guilty. The most recent data surrounding the case indicated that by the end of 2024, the couple's 2 oldest children, who were 13 and 10 years old at the time of the events, were placed under the guardianship of family, had been released by the time we finished the investigation for this video. Regarding the small, malnourished girls found alive but in very precarious conditions, the information that came out indicated that they initially went to several foster homes. The girl, who was 3 years old at the time, whom the authorities called, evolved favourably. Regarding the whereabouts of both, there are conflicting versions. While some reports indicate they are still in foster homes, other sources suggest they are with their paternal grandparents and older siblings. The case of left an indelible mark on the community where the family lived and sparked a national debate on child neglect and mental health. Although she did not seek assistance for her children, and her husband did not seek help for her or the children, despite the obvious symptoms, the incident served as a warning about the need to address these situations before they become catastrophic. After this event, local and state authorities reviewed their procedures related to child protection to ensure that events like this did not happen again. This case also highlighted the need for more robust community support and effective attention to warning signs. In the home, the intervention came too late to avoid the tragedy. Now that they know all the details, they believe that was either a victim of her mental struggles or simply heartless. What do you think of? Who lived in the same house and supposedly didn't notice anything? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
Sheriff's office! Sheriff's office! Hey, come outside for me. Hey, come here. Hey, where's your wife at, bud? Where's your wife at?
She's dead on the floor in that room.
That's mom. Yeah.
Today we will talk about a recent case with a guilty verdict issued on September 20th, 2024, which I must say was truly crazy and monstrous. That is why I need to tell you about it. Carly Gregg was born in 2009 in a small town called Flood, located in the state of Mississippi, USA. Her parents were named Ashley and Kevin Gregg. Carly spent almost all of her childhood with her mother, Ashley, because her father was rarely around. According to rumours, Carly's biological father was not the best person. He sometimes abused alcohol and prohibited substances and subjected Ashley to various forms of physical aggression. As a result, she sought help from the police and eventually broke up with him. But let's get back to Carly. She was a very smart and clever child and even skipped 1 grade in school. When Carly was only 13 years old, she passed a very difficult exam called the ACT, which most students in the USA take before entering higher education. For reference, a perfect score on the test is 36 points, and only a small percentage of students achieve this. Carly, despite her young age, managed to score 30, just 6 points shy of the perfect score. In fact, she scored the same number of points that older, top-performing students typically achieve, demonstrating her exceptional mental abilities. In the spring of 2019, Carly's mother, Ashley, met a physical therapist on his 45th birthday. They began a romantic relationship, and by June 2020, they were married. Unfortunately, it's unclear how Carly took the news or what kind of person she was at that time. However, despite her intelligence, Carly had an interest in controversial things, such as physical aggression and bladed weapons. In 7th grade, Carly got into trouble for secretly bringing a Swiss knife to school. For this, she was sent to an alternative school for difficult teenagers, where she stayed for about 6 months before returning to her previous school. Eventually she changed schools and continued her education at a high school in Brandon, Mississippi, just 10 minutes from her home. Ironically, Carly's mother, Ashley, was a geometry teacher at the same school. If you thought this would give Carly an advantage and make her feel supported, it didn't. In fact, Ashley and Carly had a difficult relationship, especially outside of school. Carly had to endure a lot, seeing her mother both at home and at school. Although Carly was the smartest girl in her class, she was also the youngest, and other students often took advantage of this. They forced Carly to do their assignments and help with various projects. In other words, Carly was in a very uncomfortable position. Because of her behaviour, Carly frequently had conflicts with her mother and stepfather. One day, Carly was caught helping her classmates cheat on a test. She got into her teacher's computer, took a photo of the answer options and shared the answers with several classmates. When this came to light, Carly was punished, which led to another serious argument with her mother. At that time, Carly was already in a relationship with a young man named Anthony. Since the two were constantly arguing, Carly's mother said she would never again allow her to be with him. For a while they broke up, but eventually they resumed their relationship. Ashley decided to leave things as they were, perhaps trusting her daughter. However, it was known that by then, Ashley had implemented close parental control. She often checked Carly's mobile devices and set restrictions on their use. In particular, she forbade Carly from using apps like TikTok and made her leave her phone in the kitchen or on Ashley's nightstand before going to bed. One of the main reasons Ashley checked Carly's phone was her desire to prevent communication with Carly's biological father, Kevin, whom she wanted to keep away from Carly. Ashley didn't believe Kevin could be a good role model, as he continued to abuse alcohol and illegal substances, and was generally a cruel person. When Ashley found out that Carly had been ignoring her restrictions and communicating with her father, she imposed even stricter rules at home. In fact, this only led Carly to express more rebellion. Although she was a smart and clever girl, this didn't shield her from the influence of her classmates, some of whom were around 15 years old. It's commonly known that this age is one of the most challenging phases in life. Many teenagers start exploring things like experimenting with prohibited substances or trying alcohol. Unfortunately, this was the environment Carly found herself in. Alongside her new and conflicting hobbies, she started showing signs of emotional struggles. Carly, during this period, was not in a stable mental state. Later, many of her peers noted that she started engaging in behaviours indicating emotional distress. Thankfully, her mother Ashley noticed these changes in time and encouraged Carly to seek professional help to manage her stress and anxiety. However, Carly could not complete the recommended therapy. Eventually, she was prescribed specific medications to support her mental health. Over time, her prescription was changed to address symptoms associated with anxiety or related concerns. A specialist believed her condition required a different approach. Notably, this change in medication occurred shortly before the major incident that would alter everything. The morning of the incident began just like any other day. Ashley and Carly went to school as usual. Later, Carly's stepfather, referred to as Hit, left for work. Observers who saw Ashley and Carly that day remarked that there was nothing unusual about their behaviour. They interacted normally, without any visible tension. After lunch, both Ashley and Carly returned home, while Hit remained at work. Their routine that afternoon was quite straightforward. Carly usually went outside to spend time with her 2 or 3 dogs, while Ashley remained indoors. On this particular day, Ashley decided to inspect Carly's belongings based on a conversation with one of Carly's close friends. This friend had approached Ashley out of concern for Carly's recent habits. She mentioned that Carly had been experimenting more frequently with substances that were not permitted and had started relying on them to a worrying extent. The friend feared that Carly was developing a pattern of dependence, prompting Ashley to take action. Ashley entered Carly's room and discovered items that validated her concerns. As any caring parent would, she became deeply worried. She didn't want Carly, who had so much potential, to lose sight of her future. While Ashley was still deciding on the best way to address the situation, Carly returned home. She went to her room and saw her mother there. What followed next escalated the situation further. Carly quickly left the room and went to another part of the house. Upon returning, she saw her mother still there, visibly concerned. From this point, their relationship took a significant turn. Afterward, Carly went to retrieve her phone. She decided to message her stepfather using Ashley's phone to ask about his plans for coming home. Following his response, Carly began texting her friends to share how overwhelming the situation had become. She mentioned feeling extremely stressed about what had occurred earlier that day and sought advice. Since many of Carly's friends were teenagers without access to transportation, they couldn't visit her in person. Instead, they asked questions about what had happened. Carly responded briefly and seemed hesitant to share details. According to some accounts, one of her friends even suggested reaching out to authorities, but Carly appeared reluctant. Eventually, Carly contacted a particular friend and asked for help. Since Carly was a minor, I won't mention her friend's real name. When Carly reached out, her friend expressed concern and involved her own father, who agreed to drive her to Carly's house. Upon arriving, Carly's friend and her father entered the home. What they witnessed left them deeply unsettled. Carly appeared overwhelmed and distressed by the events that had unfolded earlier. It was evident that the situation required immediate attention and support to address what had transpired effectively. When Carly's friend arrived at her house, she noticed nothing unusual at first. The atmosphere seemed calm, even mundane. However, Carly quickly changed the tone by asking her a strange question. "You're not afraid of shocking things, are you?" What followed left the friend deeply unsettled. Carly led her to her room and revealed something troubling. She also mentioned keeping an object nearby, explaining that it was for her stepfather, who could return at any moment. Sensing Carly's tension, the friend was unsure how to react. Carly suggested she step outside into the backyard while Carly handled matters inside. Trusting Carly's advice, the friend complied and waited outside. Later, many questioned why the friend didn't try to escape or call for help. Based on her testimony, she was overwhelmed and believed it safer to follow Carly's instructions rather than risk angering her. While outside, the friend heard loud noises from the house, sharp, sudden sounds followed by brief silence. Carly eventually emerged, appearing visibly agitated, and told her friend they needed to leave. The 2 girls fled the property, separating shortly afterward. Carly's friend returned to her own home, trying to process what she had just experienced. Meanwhile, Carly's stepfather, Heath, arrived home unaware of what had transpired. According to his account, he was met with an alarming situation as he entered the house. There was a confrontation during which Heath managed to avoid serious harm despite the chaos. Heath described Carly as seeming overwhelmed and acting as though under immense stress or confusion. After the confrontation, Heath called authorities to report the incident and request immediate assistance. While on the phone, he cautiously inspected the house, unsure if anyone else was involved. During his search, Heath discovered Ashley in a concerning state and immediately informed the authorities. Police arrived shortly after, securing the scene and escorting Heath to a hospital for evaluation. As officers began their investigation, they found a surveillance camera in the garage that had captured footage of the confrontation. This evidence proved critical in understanding the sequence of events. Carly, who had left the house, was soon found walking along a roadside about 2 miles from her home. She was taken into custody for questioning. During the interrogation, Carly's friends were also contacted, and they shared troubling insights into her behaviour in the weeks leading up to the incident. Several friends revealed that Carly often expressed frustration with her mother, Ashley, claiming she felt stifled by her rules. Some even recalled Carly hinting at feelings of resentment, though they never imagined it would lead to such an outcome. Carly's biological father also shared his perspective, suggesting that deeper issues may have influenced her actions. However, he lacked concrete evidence to support his claims. Carly's defense team argued that she may have been struggling with emotional and mental health challenges, citing reports of stress, anxiety, and contradictory thoughts. However, psychological evaluations conducted during the trial failed to confirm any specific diagnoses that could explain her actions. Throughout the trial, the prosecution presented a compelling case, supported by witness testimony, physical evidence, and surveillance footage. Heath testified about what he encountered upon returning home, describing the confusion and chaos of the situation. Carly's friend, who had visited the house that day, also provided detailed testimony. She recounted her growing concerns about Carly's behaviour in the weeks prior and her decision to confide in Ashley. The jury deliberated carefully, considering all the evidence and testimony. Ultimately, Carly was found guilty of the charges brought against her. These included her actions toward her mother and the harm attempted against her stepfather. Carly received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Additionally, she was sentenced to an extra 10 years for tampering with evidence. Following the sentencing, Carly's legal team sought to appeal the decision, arguing for a reduced sentence. However, their efforts were unsuccessful, and the original sentence was upheld. This case highlights the importance of recognizing and addressing emotional and behavioral challenges before they escalate. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more unique crime stories and support the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.